What if I told you the final frontier is also the weirdest place humanity has ever explored? Picture the infinite blackness of space, dotted not just with stars and planets, but with objects so unusual they seem to belong in science fiction rather than reality. Out there, right now, countless strange artifacts and natural phenomena are drifting through the cosmos, each with its own story, each more baffling than the last. We often think of space as a silent, empty void, but the truth is far more fascinating. It's a floating museum of the extraordinary, the unexplained, and the downright weird. This is a realm where human ingenuity meets cosmic mystery, where the remnants of our ambition mingle with nature's most puzzling creations, and today we're setting out on a journey to uncover them. From the very beginning, our fascination with space has been tied to a sense of wonder and curiosity. We look up at the night sky and see not just points of light but possibilities, each glimmer hinting at secrets waiting to be uncovered. That sense of awe is what drives explorers, scientists, and dreamers alike to push further into the unknown. And as we've ventured outward, we've left behind traces of our presence: satellites, probes, abandoned equipment, and even personal mementos that now orbit Earth and drift deeper into the solar system. But it's not just human-made objects that capture our imagination. Nature itself has placed inexplicable wonders adrift in the cosmos, things that challenge everything we think we know about physics, chemistry, and the universe itself. So get ready to expand your understanding of what's really out there. In this video, we'll be counting down the 30 weirdest things floating in space right now, a collection so strange you'll find yourself questioning reality. Some of these objects tell stories of triumph and innovation. Others are cosmic accidents or mysteries that even top scientists can't fully explain. Each item on this list is a testament to the boundless creativity of both humanity and the universe, and together they paint a picture of space that is far from empty. It's vibrant, unexpected, and utterly captivating. Whether you're a seasoned space enthusiast or just curious about the oddities of the cosmos, this journey promises to leave you in awe, so let's begin. And kicking off our list at number 30 is perhaps the most famous piece of space junk in the solar system, a cherry red Tesla Roadster. This isn't a computer-generated image or a concept from a sci-fi film. It's a real production car that was strapped to the top of the very first Falcon Heavy rocket launched by SpaceX back in February 2018. With nothing but the vastness of space as its open road, the car was sent on a trajectory that took it swinging past Mars and into a heliocentric orbit, forever circling the Sun. But the car itself is only half the story. Behind the wheel sits a mannequin dressed in a full spacesuit, nicknamed Starman by Elon Musk, calmly piloting this interstellar convertible as if he's on a Sunday drive through the cosmos. The details only get more surreal from there. The car's stereo was programmed to play David Bowie's iconic song Space Oddity on a continuous loop, a track that famously tells the story of an astronaut named Major Tom drifting in the void. It's a piece of audacious and poetic performance art on a cosmic scale, a literal soundtrack for a journey without end. Of course, the practical reality is that the car's battery died long ago, so the music has since fallen silent, but the symbolism remains as powerful as ever. This object isn't merely debris, it's a time capsule and a monument to human ambition, creativity, and our peculiar sense of humor. So where is Starman now? The Roadster has completed multiple orbits around the Sun since its launch. It travels on an elliptical path that carries it from within Earth's orbit out to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. While it's technically true that you could one day look through a powerful enough telescope and see it, the chances are astronomically small. It is, for all intents and purposes, lost in the ocean of space, a tiny speck of human culture adrift amongst the planets. It serves as a whimsical reminder that our ventures into the cosmos are not just about cold, hard science. they are also an expression of our art, our stories, and our desire to leave a mark, no matter how strange that mark might be. Now, from a cherry red convertible forever circling the sun, we journey to our own moon for an object that's far more down to earth, yet just as wonderfully bizarre. At number 29 on our list, we find a pair of golf balls resting silently in the lunar dust. These aren't just any golf balls. They were hit by astronaut Alan Shepard during the Apollo 14 mission in February 1971, and they remain perfectly preserved on the surface to this day. Shepard, who was one of the original Mercury 7 astronauts and America's first man in space, had smuggled a makeshift 6-iron onto the lunar module. With a one-handed swing, a necessity thanks to the stiff, pressurized suit, he famously took a few shots, sending the first one, by his own admission, shanking into a nearby crater. But the second shot, he proclaimed, went for miles and miles and miles. The science behind why these golf balls are still in such perfect condition is just as fascinating as the story itself. The moon has no atmosphere, which means there's no wind or weather to erode them. They aren't exposed to oxygen, so they can't rust or corrode. They simply sit in the ultimate time capsule, a vacuum that perfectly preserves everything it touches. The relentless, unfiltered solar radiation that bombards the lunar surface would break down many materials over decades, but the core of a golf ball is designed to be incredibly durable. Without any force to move them, they've likely settled into the regolith exactly where they landed over 50 years ago, untouched and unblemished. Shepard's whimsical moment was more than just a publicity stunt. It was a brilliant display of human spirit and a masterclass in public engagement. At a time when the space race was in full swing and missions were complex scientific endeavors, this simple act of play made the entire enterprise feel relatable and triumphant. It was a moment of pure joy beamed back to millions on Earth, a reminder that even in the most serious of undertakings, there's room for a little fun. Those two golf balls are more than just sports equipment. They are a monument to ingenuity and a testament to the fact that exploration isn't just about collecting rocks and data. It's about leaving a piece of ourselves behind, no matter how unconventional that piece may be. Coming in at number 28 is an object that serves as a sobering reminder of just how easy it is to lose something in space, even when you're just outside your front door. This is the story of the lost tool bag, an item that accidentally slipped from the grasp of astronaut Hyde Stephanician Piper during a spacewalk outside the International Space Station in 2008. During a routine maintenance procedure to clean and lubricate a gummed-up rotary joint on the station's solar array, a grease gun inside her toolkit burst. In the effort to manage the messy situation while wearing bulky, pressurized gloves, the entire bag, estimated to be about the size of a large backpack, drifted away from her. In the weightlessness of orbit, there was no grabbing it back. With a gentle push, it was gone forever, set adrift on its own independent path around the Earth. What happened next turned this costly mistake into a bizarre astronomical phenomenon. The bag, filled with tools worth around $100,000, didn't just vanish into the black. It entered a stable orbit, trailing a few minutes ahead of the International Space Station itself. Its white fabric and metallic tools made it highly reflective, and for a time, it became one of the brightest objects in the night sky, visible to amateur astronomers with even modest backyard telescopes. For many space enthusiasts, tracking the tool bag became a novel hobby. Websites and online forums dedicated to satellite spotting provided precise coordinates, allowing people to go outside, look up, and witness a tiny man-made star, a piece of human error, gliding silently overhead. Its fame, however, was always destined to be short-lived. Unlike the Tesla Roadster, which was flung into a stable orbit around the Sun, the tool bag was trapped in the tenuous upper atmosphere of Earth. Every orbit brought a little more drag, slowly but surely bleeding away its speed and altitude. After months of being watched by stargazers below, the bag's path eventually decayed enough that it met its fiery end, burning up harmlessly in the atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. It serves as a perfect, fleeting metaphor for our presence in space, a brilliant, human-made spectacle that shines for a moment before being reabsorbed by the planet it came from, a tiny spark against the immense backdrop of the cosmos. Yet the mystery only deepens as we ascend our list and turn our gaze toward a distant sun that has single-handedly redefined the word anomaly. At number 4, we encounter an enigma so profound that the scientific community half-jokingly gave it a nickname born from pure, unadulterated astonishment, the WTF star. Its official designation is KIC 8462852, but you'll more commonly know it as Tabby's star, named after the astronomer Tabby, who led the team that first brought its bizarre behavior to the world's attention. Located over 1,000 light-years away in the constellation Cygnus, this seemingly ordinary star exhibits a pattern of dimming that defies every conventional explanation we have. We're not talking about the gentle, rhythmic dip in brightness caused by an orbiting planet. This star's light fluctuates in violent, unpredictable, and asymmetrical plunges. At times, its luminosity has been observed to drop by a staggering 22%. To put that in perspective, even a planet as enormous as Jupiter passing in front of a star like our own Sun would only cause a dimming of about 1%. What we are witnessing is the equivalent of a vast, invisible hand occasionally reaching out and blotting out nearly a quarter of this star's light. The quest to understand Tabby's star has launched a fleet of wild and wonderful theories, a true battleground of imagination where conventional astronomy meets the outer limits of possibility. The more mundane explanations point toward a colossal swarm of comets, a fragmented planet, or an immense cloud of cosmic dust orbiting the star in a bizarrely clumpy formation. Yet even these natural hypotheses struggle to fully account for the sheer scale and irregularity of the dimming events. This is where the more exotic ideas gain their footing. The most famous and certainly the most thrilling is the alien megastructure hypothesis. The concept, rooted in theoretical astrophysics, suggests a highly advanced civilization could be constructing a Dyson sphere, a vast array of energy-collecting satellites or panels encircling their star to harness its total power output. From our distant vantage point, the construction and irregular arrangement of such a megastructure could perfectly explain the strange, blocking patterns we observe. Of course, scientists are a naturally skeptical bunch, and the hunt for a more conventional answer continues with relentless passion. Subsequent observations have detected traces of dust around the star, which heavily favors a natural explanation over an artificial one, as any alien megastructure would likely be made of materials that don't produce such a dusty signature. The star remains under intense scrutiny by telescopes around the world and in orbit, with astronomers monitoring its every flicker. It represents a beautiful paradox of modern science. We are almost certainly witnessing a rare but natural astrophysical phenomenon we don't yet fully understand, yet the mere possibility that we might be wrong, that we might be seeing the first evidence of intelligence beyond our own, is what keeps the cameras pointed and our imaginations burning brightly. It is a powerful reminder that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to us, and that the weirdest things floating in space are often the ones that challenge us to think in entirely new ways. But our journey through the cosmos of the bizarre now brings us closer to home, to an object that proves you don't need to travel light years to find something truly unnerving. At number 5 on our countdown is a spectacle that has been routinely terrifying and amazing amateur astronomers for decades: the space jellyfish. This is not some newly discovered alien life form, but rather a very human-made artifact with a deeply unsettling ability to transform itself. Its official, much less exciting name is the SL-4R/B rocket body, a defunct upper stage rocket booster left over from the launch of a Russian Cosmos satellite back in 1987. For over 3 decades, this piece of space junk has been silently tumbling through the void, a cylindrical hunk of metal no different from thousands of others. But under the right conditions, this inert object undergoes a metamorphosis, becoming one of the most ghostly and beautiful sights in the night sky. The magic, as it often does, comes from a trick of the light. The rocket body's rotation is chaotic and uncontrolled, a slow end-over-end tumble through its orbit. When the geometry is just right for an observer on Earth, the sun catches its shiny surface at a precise angle. In that moment, the entire cylinder acts like a giant mirror, reflecting a tremendous flash of sunlight directly toward us. Because the object is tumbling, these flashes aren't constant. They occur in a rhythmic, pulsating pattern. A bright flare will erupt into view, hold for a few seconds, and then just as suddenly vanish as the booster rotates away, only to reappear moments later. This creates the unmistakable illusion of a living, breathing entity, a glowing, pulsing creature drifting through the blackness. This eerie visual effect is what gives the space jellyfish its name and its fame. To the unaided eye, it doesn't look like a satellite or a plane. It looks utterly unnatural. It can appear to change direction, vary its speed, and flicker in a way that no star or planet ever could. It's little wonder that for years it has been a prime contributor to UFO reports, with countless people convinced they have witnessed something otherworldly. The reality is a brilliant demonstration of simple physics and human perception, where a discarded piece of our own technology can, for a brief window of time, become a source of cosmic mystery and wonder, a reminder that sometimes the most alien things in space are the ones we put there ourselves. Moving from the eerie, pulsating glow of the space jellyfish, we now venture far beyond Earth's orbit to an artifact of profound hope and ambition. At number 6 on our list of the weirdest things in space, we find the Pioneer plaques, humanity's first deliberate attempt to send a physical message to the stars. These gold anodized aluminum plaques, designed by the visionary team of Carl Sagan and Frank Drake, and illustrated by Sagan's then-wife Linda Saltzman Sagan, were bolted to the antenna support struts of the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 spacecraft. Their purpose was as staggering as it was simple: to serve as a cosmic hello, a bottled note cast into the ocean of interstellar space, intended for any advanced extraterrestrial intelligence that might one day find these silent travelers. The design of the plaque is a masterclass in conveying complex information without written language. At its heart is a simple yet elegant illustration of a man and a woman standing before the outline of their spacecraft to provide a sense of scale. The man's hand is raised in a gesture of goodwill, a universal sign of peace. To the left, a series of lines radiating from a central point provides a galactic map. These lines represent the relative distances and directions to 14 pulsars, incredibly dense, rapidly spinning neutron stars that emit beams of radiation with the precise regularity of a cosmic lighthouse. By noting the unique spin rates of these pulsars in binary code, the plaque provides a roadmap that points directly back to our Sun as the home system of the spacecraft's origin. Further down, a schematic of our solar system shows the planets in orbit around the Sun, with Pioneer's trajectory arcing away from the third planet, Earth, and past the fifth planet, Jupiter. This was the mission's first target, making it the first spacecraft to venture into the outer solar system. Every element was chosen for its potential clarity to a completely unknown intelligence, a silent film etched in metal about who we are and where we came from. The decision to depict the humans in the nude was both a scientific and philosophical choice, intended to show our species as we naturally are, without the cultural baggage of clothing. While this sparked some controversy back on Earth, it was a bold statement of transparency and honesty to the cosmos. So where are these messengers now? Pioneer 10, after its groundbreaking flyby of Jupiter, continued on a trajectory heading generally toward the red star Aldebaran in the constellation Taurus. It's a journey that will take over 2 million years. Its sister probe, Pioneer 11, went on to visit Saturn before also arcing out of the solar system toward the constellation Aquila. Both spacecraft fell silent decades ago, their nuclear power sources having decayed beyond the ability to send a signal back to Earth. They are now cold, dark artifacts drifting through the unimaginable void of interstellar space. The chances of them ever being found are infinitesimally small, but that was never truly the point. The cultural significance of the Pioneer plaques far outweighs their physical journey. They represent a monumental shift in our cosmic perspective, a moment when we stopped just listening to the universe and began to speak back. They are a testament to a more optimistic era of space exploration, a product of the 1970s when we dared to imagine a future of peaceful outreach rather than fearful isolation. These plaques and the later, more complex Voyager golden records that followed are perhaps the most profound pieces of art humanity has ever created. They are not merely maps or diagrams, they are a declaration of existence, a snapshot of a species brave enough and curious enough to announce, "We are here," into the eternal silence with no guarantee of an answer, but with every hope that one might someday come. Yet the story of our cosmic calling cards did not end with the Pioneer plaques. Just a few years later, humanity launched an even more ambitious and profound message into the void. Taking the number 7 spot on our countdown are the legendary Voyager golden records, the most comprehensive time capsules of human culture ever sent beyond our solar system. Mounted to the sides of the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 probes, these aren't your typical vinyl records. They are 12-inch gold-plated copper discs, engineered to last for 1 billion years in the harsh environment of interstellar space. Etched with symbolic instructions on how to play them using the included cartridge and needle, these records are a treasure trove of sights and sounds from our planet, a carefully curated soundtrack and photo album for Earth. The selection process for the record's contents was led by a committee chaired by the renowned astronomer Carl Sagan. Their monumental task was to create a portrait of life on Earth that could be understood by a completely alien intelligence, an intelligence that might not see, hear, or even perceive reality in any way we can conceive. The audio portion begins with a beautiful, almost spiritual overture, greetings in 55 ancient and modern languages from Akkadian, spoken in Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago, to Wu, a modern Chinese dialect. Following this are the sounds of our world, a collection that feels both scientific and deeply poetic. One can hear the crashing waves of an ocean, the rumble of thunder, the chatter of a chimpanzee, the cry of a human infant, and perhaps most hauntingly, the soaring songs of humpback whales cutting through the deep ocean silence. But the record truly soars when it presents the universal language of music. The team selected 27 pieces from across the globe and across centuries, a testament to the diversity of human expression. There are classical compositions by Bach, Beethoven, and Stravinsky, traditional folk tunes from Senegal, Peru, and Azerbaijan, the enchanting sounds of a Navajo night chant and a Japanese shakuhachi flute. And in a moment of brilliant, defiant celebration of 20th century culture, they included Chuck Berry's electrifying rock and roll anthem, Johnny B. Good. When some questioned whether this represented our civilization's highest artistic achievement, Carl Sagan famously replied, "There are a lot of adolescents on the planet. I thought we should include a piece of music that is especially for them." The visual component encoded in analog form on the record is just as rich. 116 images and diagrams were painstakingly selected to tell our story. They begin with scientific concepts, mathematical and physical definitions, diagrams of our solar system and DNA structure. They then move to the natural world, photographs of trees, leaves, snowflakes, and animals. Finally, they depict us, images of humans of all ages and from many cultures, engaged in activities from eating and laughing to working with tools and technology. There are scenes of cities and landscapes, and even a diagram of human anatomy. It is a grand, sweeping narrative of a species and its home, all contained on a single metallic disc. Today, these twin messengers are the farthest human-made objects from Earth. Voyager 1 officially entered interstellar space in 2012, and Voyager 2 followed in 2018. They are now so distant that their radio signals, traveling at the speed of light, take over 22 hours to reach us. They have long since surpassed their primary mission of exploring the outer planets, having given us our first close-up looks at Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Their power systems are slowly fading, and within the next few years, their final instruments will fall silent. They will become true ghost ships drifting eternally through the galaxy. The likelihood that either Voyager will ever be found is astronomically remote. Space is unimaginably vast, and the probes are unimaginably small. They are not aimed at any particular star, and it will be tens of thousands of years before they even come remotely close to another planetary system. Yet, as with the Pioneer plaques, their true value is not in their destination but in their very existence. They stand as a permanent statement of hope, a gesture of connection from a young, curious species eager to say, "This is who we were and what we dreamed of at this moment in our history." They are a testament to our best selves, our creativity, our artistry, our science, and our boundless optimism that we are not alone in a silent universe. And soaring into the number 8 spot on our countdown is a legend that has captivated conspiracy theorists and space buffs for generations. An object shrouded in so much mystery and misinformation that its true story is often overshadowed by its myth. This is the tale of the so-called Black Knight satellite, a supposed ancient alien probe that conspiracy lore claims has been orbiting our planet for 13,000 years, silently watching the rise and fall of human civilization. The stories are incredible, that it was first detected by Nikola Tesla in the 1890s, that it was photographed by early space missions, and that government agencies like NASA have been covering up its existence ever since. It's a narrative straight out of a science fiction thriller, painting a picture of a silent, otherworldly sentinel from the stars. But when we pull back the curtain and examine the evidence with a scientific lens, a far more ordinary, though no less fascinating, picture emerges. The most famous piece of proof is a 1998 photograph from a Space Shuttle Endeavour mission that appears to show a strange, jagged black object against the curvature of the Earth. This image has been circulated endlessly as the definitive image of the Black Knight. The reality, however, is wonderfully mundane. NASA quickly identified the object as a thermal blanket that had been lost during an earlier spacewalk. These blankets are used to protect sensitive equipment from the extreme temperatures of space, and this one simply drifted away, becoming just another piece of space junk that happened to be captured in a stunning, if misleading, photograph. Further historical digging reveals even more plausible origins for the myth. In 1960, just a few years after the launch of Sputnik, Time magazine reported that the US Navy had detected a dark, unknown object in orbit. The immediate fear was that it was a Soviet spy satellite, a secret weapon in the burgeoning space race. The mystery was soon solved when it was revealed to be the remains of a Discoverer satellite launch, its payload cover tumbling through space. Our own technology, behaving in unexpected ways, once again gave birth to a cosmic mystery. Radio signals attributed to the Black Knight have similarly been explained as natural pulsars or ground-based interference, their repetitive patterns mistaken for artificial broadcasts from an alien intelligence. Yet, the enduring power of the Black Knight legend isn't really about the facts, it's about what it represents. It speaks to a deep human desire for mystery, for the idea that we are not alone and that evidence of other intelligent life is hiding in plain sight. It has become a powerful cultural icon, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and even major films, cementing its place in the modern mythology of space. The black night is a Rorschach test against the black canvas of space. We look up, see an unfamiliar shape, and project our greatest hopes, fears, and fantasies onto it. It proves that sometimes the weirdest thing floating out there isn't the object itself, but the incredible story we choose to tell about it. Arriving at number 9 is perhaps the most profound interstellar mystery of our time, an object that challenged everything we thought we knew about visitors from the depths of space. In October 2017, astronomers at the University of Hawaii's Pan-STARRS 1 telescope spotted something extraordinary. A tiny, faint point of light moving at blistering speed against the backdrop of stars. They named it Aumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Its trajectory was immediately and stunningly clear. It was not from around here. Its path was hyperbolic, meaning it was not bound by the sun's gravity. This was our first confirmed visitor from another star system, a cosmic tourist just passing through our neighborhood. But as scientists scrambled to observe it, Aumuamua revealed itself to be profoundly, bafflingly weird. First was its shape, based on extreme variations in its brightness as it tumbled end over end. Astronomers deduced it was highly elongated, shaped like a cigar or a pancake, with estimates suggesting it was up to 10 times longer than it was wide. Nothing in our solar system looks quite like it. Most asteroids and comets are far more rounded or lumpy. Then there was its motion. As it hurtled away from the sun, something extraordinary happened. It didn't just follow a purely gravitational path as expected. Instead, it exhibited a tiny but undeniable non-gravitational acceleration, as if it had a gentle push from within. For comets, this is easily explained by outgassing the sun's heat vaporizes ice, creating jets that act like natural thrusters, the critical spine-tingling detail. Aumuamua showed no visible signs of this activity, no surrounding coma of gas and dust, no tail. It was as if an invisible engine was at work. This bizarre combination of traits, its origin, its shape, its mysterious acceleration launched 1,000 theories. The most tantalizing, proposed by Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, was the possibility that Aumuamua was not a natural object at all, but a piece of alien technology. Perhaps a light sail, a thin, reflective sheet designed to be pushed by the radiation pressure from stars, which would perfectly explain its unusual acceleration without any visible outgassing. The idea that we might have been buzzed by a derelict probe or a discarded piece of an extraterrestrial civilization captured the world's imagination, fueling endless debate and speculation. It was a scenario straight out of Arthur C. Clarke's science fiction, a notion both terrifying and exhilarating. The scientific community, however, rallied to find a natural explanation, and the latest research points toward a solution that is almost as strange as the alien hypothesis. The prevailing theory now suggests Aumuamua was likely a chunk of frozen nitrogen, a cosmic iceberg ripped from the surface of a Pluto-like exoplanet in another star system millions of years ago. As this nitrogen ice was warmed by the sun, it would have turned directly from a solid into a gas, a process called sublimation, providing the thrust for its acceleration. Because nitrogen ice is not very reflective and would vent in a way that doesn't produce much visible dust, this could explain why we saw no traditional comet-like tail. The object would have been slowly eroded away during its journey, its bizarre shape sculpted by eons of cosmic radiation and its close encounter with our star. Whether a nitrogen iceberg or something else entirely, Aumuamua's brief visit was a monumental event in astronomy. It proved that interstellar objects are constantly passing through our solar system. We simply hadn't had the technology to detect them until now. It forced us to reconsider our models of how planetary systems form and eject material, suggesting that icebergs of frozen gases could be a common form of interstellar debris. Most importantly, it was a humbling reminder of how much we still have to learn. Aumuamua was a messenger from afar, all right, a messenger that delivered a note saying the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined, and that the next time a dot of light streaks across our telescopes, we had better be ready for anything. Now, creeping into our top 10 at number 10, we enter the realm of the undead with what can only be described as zombie satellites. These are not derelict hunks of metal silently tumbling through the void. These are machines that were declared dead, their missions over and their systems shut down, only to inexplicably awaken years or even decades later to broadcast ghostly signals back to a world that had long since forgotten them. It's a phenomenon that feels less like engineering and more like a scene from a space horror film, where forgotten technology stirs from its eternal slumber to whisper into the void once more. The most famous case is that of the Lincoln Experimental Satellite 1, or LES-1. Built by MIT and launched in 1965, its mission was to test new satellite communication technologies. A malfunction in its wiring caused it to fail shortly after reaching orbit, and it was abandoned, left to drift silently in its graveyard orbit. For 46 years, it was just another nameless piece of space junk until 2013. That's when an amateur astronomer in North Cornwall, England, picked up a faint, oscillating signal on the 237 MHz frequency. The signal was a repeating, ghostly wail, a dit-dit-dit-da, that would fade in and out as the satellite tumbled end over end, causing its solar panels to catch the sun and power its long-dead transmitter in erratic bursts. The scientific explanation points to a short circuit caused by decades of radiation exposure, perhaps allowing power to briefly flow again. But hearing that signal, a faint heartbeat from a machine launched when John F. Kennedy was president, is an undeniably spooky experience. LES-1 is not alone in its posthumous activity. The AMSAT Oscar 7, an amateur radio satellite launched in 1974, was declared dead in 1981 after its batteries failed. Yet in 2002, 21 years later, it began responding to calls from Earth again. It turns out the satellite's solar panels had somehow bridged the gap in the failed battery system, allowing it to power up and function during the sunlit portions of its orbit. Hams around the world once again began using it to communicate across vast distances, chatting on a satellite that was older than many of its operators. These aren't malevolent hauntings, they are cosmic miracles of forgotten engineering, a testament to the rugged, unintentional durability of our early space hardware. So what causes these technological resurrections? The theories are as fascinating as the events themselves. The harsh environment of space is a constant barrage of extreme temperature swings, micrometeoroid impacts, and relentless radiation. This bombardment can physically alter the satellite's components over time. Radiation can damage internal electronics, but it can also accidentally scrub away layers of oxidation on electrical contacts or cause unexpected short circuits that bring a dead power system back online, if only for a brief, flickering moment. It's like a lightning strike reanimating a long-dormant machine. In other cases, the explanation is simpler. We just didn't understand how truly robust our own creations were. Their designs were so solid that even after catastrophic failures, a random alignment of solar panels to the sun after years of tumbling can provide just enough juice to fire up a single transmitter for one last call home. These zombie satellites serve as a poignant, almost philosophical reminder of our presence in space. They are unintended time capsules echoing the ambitions of a bygone era. Every faint, erratic signal is a message from the past, a whisper from the early days of the space age that refuses to be silenced. They blur the line between machine and monument, behaving in ways their creators never predicted and leaving us to wonder what other ghosts we've left drifting overhead, waiting for the right moment to suddenly and mysteriously speak again. While we often marvel at the grand technologies that propel us to the stars, sometimes the most critical innovations address the most basic human needs. Securing the number 11 spot on our list is a brilliant and frankly hilarious solution to one of spaceflight's oldest and most persistent problems: what to do with your business when you're doing business in space. This is the story of NASA's Space Poop Challenge, a public competition that proved when it comes to human waste, things can get very weird very quickly. In 2016, NASA put out an open call to the global community, offering a $30,000 prize to anyone who could design a system to handle astronaut fecal, urine, and menstrual waste for up to 6 days inside a pressurized spacesuit. This wasn't for the relatively spacious confines of the ISS bathroom. This was for worst-case scenarios, like during a long launch emergency or an extended spacewalk where you simply cannot take the suit off. The winning design, submitted by flight surgeon Thatcher Carden, was as ingenious as it was bizarre. His concept, titled the Mace's Perineal Access and Toileting System, or MPATS for short, reads like something from a sci-fi comedy. The system is ingeniously integrated directly into the suit's existing relief tube, the small port already used for urine. Carden's innovation was a miniature airlock, a tiny hatch that could be opened and closed to the vacuum of space without depressurizing the entire suit. The astronaut would use a specially shaped silicone air bladder, which he described as a little air pillow, to create a seal against their body. Then, a small UFO-like device he called a perineal unfriendly object would be inserted. This device would use blasts of air to micro-abrade and shred any solid waste, while a tiny catheter would simultaneously apply a suction powerful enough to pull the resulting material through the suit's plumbing and into a collection bag. It's a system that is equal parts horrifying and utterly brilliant, a stark reminder that in the sterile, high-tech environment of spaceflight, biology always wins. The winning design was never actually built or flown, but its purpose highlights a stark reality of life off-world. Every single mission, from the early Mercury flights to the ongoing expeditions on the International Space Station, has had to contend with this most fundamental issue. The solutions have evolved from simple bags taped to the body with adhesive liners, a famously unpleasant process astronauts nicknamed "roaring up the ramp" to the complex, Russian-designed suction toilets on the ISS that cost millions of dollars. Each of these systems, in its own way, produces a weird artifact, a sealed, contained package of biological waste that has to be stored, jettisoned, or sometimes even studied. And that's where the story takes its final, strange turn into our theme. These packages of processed human waste don't just vanish. On the ISS, solid waste is compacted, stored in containers, and loaded into disposable cargo ships like the Cygnus or Progress spacecraft. These ships are then deliberately sent on a one-way trip to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. For a brief, fiery moment, the byproducts of human digestion become literal shooting stars, incinerated in a blaze of glory over the ocean. It's a strangely poetic end for something so mundane, a reminder that even our most basic biological functions are transformed into something extraordinary the moment they leave our planet. It proves that in the final frontier, nothing is ordinary, and everything from a cherry red sports car to a bag of poop has its own bizarre and fascinating story to tell. And speaking of human artifacts taking on a strange cosmic significance, our next entry proves that even the most mundane and practical of objects can achieve immortality in the void. Claiming the number 12 spot is a simple, unassuming piece of equipment from the Apollo 12 mission, a camera lens cap. This isn't a grand monument or a complex machine. It's a small, black, probably felt-lined cap designed to do one simple job: protect the glass of a television camera from dust and damage. Its entire existence was meant to be temporary, a disposable cover to be removed and discarded the moment the camera was needed. But on the surface of the Moon in November 1969, this ordinary item embarked on an extraordinary journey. The story begins with astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean on their second moonwalk. they were tasked with setting up the Apollo Lunar Surface Experiments package, a suite of scientific instruments that would continue sending data back to Earth long after they left. Part of this setup involved deploying a color television camera. Once the camera was mounted on its tripod and the lens cap was removed, Conrad was faced with a very simple, very human problem: what to do with the now useless piece of plastic in his hand. There were no pockets on his bulky pressure suit, and it certainly wasn't worth the effort to carry it all the way back to the lunar module just to throw it in a trash bag. So, with a casual flick of a wrist that has since become legendary, he gave it a firm toss away from the worksite. In the moon's low gravity, lacking any atmosphere to slow it down, the lens cap didn't just fall to the ground. It sailed with a perfect, gentle arc, traveling much farther than it ever could on Earth before eventually landing somewhere out in the vast, gray plain of the Ocean of Storms. But that's not the end of its story, it's merely the end of its lunar chapter. The true weirdness began when Conrad and Bean finished their work, lifted off from the moon, and rendezvoused with the command module piloted by Dick Gordon in orbit. After the lunar rocks and soil samples were transferred, the crew began the process of jettisoning anything they no longer needed to save weight for the journey home. This included the lunar module's ascent stage, the part of the spacecraft that had carried them off the moon. Once the astronauts were safely back in the command module, they separated from the ascent stage and fired their thrusters to move a safe distance away. Mission Control then sent a command to the abandoned ascent stage, triggering its remaining fuel to burn and sending it on a trajectory to crash back onto the lunar surface so scientists could study the seismic waves it created. However, that jettisoned spacecraft wasn't entirely empty. Stowed inside were all the things the astronauts had discarded on the moon, including the bags containing their waste and presumably any other trash collected from the cabin. The energetic force of the ascent stage's engine burn didn't just send the spacecraft itself toward the moon. It also sent a cloud of smaller, unsecured debris flying in all directions at high velocity. And right there in that cloud, mixed in with empty food packets and used wet wipes, was that simple black lens cap. The burn imparted just enough energy to some of these items to achieve escape velocity from the moon's relatively weak gravity. Instead of crashing back to the surface with the ascent stage, these pieces of trash were flung out into space, set free on independent orbits around the sun. This means that right now, somewhere in the inner solar system, a felt-lined piece of plastic is orbiting our star. It has become a permanent, if infinitesimally small, member of our solar system. It will continue its silent, sun-centered journey for millions of years, outliving not only the astronauts who threw it, but likely the entire human species. It's a profoundly strange thought. That lens cap was created in a factory on Earth with a single, simple purpose. It was carefully packaged, flown 250,000 miles, carried onto the surface of another world, and then accidentally given the greatest gift any object could ask for: eternal life in the cosmos. It's a cosmic irony of the highest order, where the only thing we intentionally left behind on the moon are the footprints and the flags, while the things we threw away without a second thought are the ones that got to escape and explore the universe forever. Which brings us to a ghost from the cosmic static, a whisper so profound that the astronomer who discovered it was moved to simply circle it and write a single, powerful word of pure astonishment: wow. Securing the number 13 spot on our list is the source of that legendary signal, a 72-second burst of radio waves detected in 1977 that represents perhaps the most tantalizing and frustrating mystery in the entire search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It all began on a quiet August night at Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope, a massive ground-based array that was methodically scanning the sky for any sign of artificial transmissions from beyond our solar system. The system printed its data as a long string of alphanumeric characters, with the intensity of any signal represented by a number or letter. most of the printout was a sea of background noise, typically represented by 1s and 2s. But then, just after 10:16 p.m., the machine recorded a sequence so intense it broke the scale, 6 alphanumeric characters, 6EQJ5, that corresponded to a signal strength over 30 times louder than the ambient noise of deep space. The signal came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, near the star group Chi Sagittarii, and it possessed the 2 key hallmarks that scientists had theorized would indicate an artificial, intelligent origin. First, it was transmitted at exactly 1,420 MHz, the precise frequency of the hydrogen line. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, and the reasoning was that an advanced civilization might use this fundamental, universal frequency as an obvious, natural channel for communication, a cosmic hailing frequency. Second, the signal's bandwidth was narrow, less than 10 kHz wide, which is consistent with a focused, engineered transmission rather than a broad, natural astrophysical event. For 72 glorious seconds, as the Earth's rotation swept the Big Ear telescope's field of view across that patch of sky, the signal blared with stunning clarity. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished, returning to the familiar background hiss. Despite dozens of subsequent searches and decades of monitoring by projects like SETI, the WOW signal was never heard again. It was a one-time event, a single, perfect cosmic shout into the void. The search for an explanation has consumed astronomers and enthusiasts ever since. The most obvious terrestrial culprits, aircraft, satellites, or ground-based interference, were all quickly ruled out. The signal's frequency is protected internationally, meaning no Earth-based transmitters are allowed to broadcast on it. The nature of the signal's rise and fall also perfectly matched what you would expect from a stationary, distant source being scanned by a rotating Earth, eliminating a moving object like a satellite. Could it have been a reflection of our own signals bouncing off a piece of space debris? While possible, the specific intensity and profile make this seem incredibly unlikely. The most plausible natural explanations point toward a comet or a random astrophysical event like a maser, a naturally occurring microwave laser, or the chance emission from a hydrogen cloud excited by a distant star. Yet even these struggle to fully account for the signal's unique and powerful properties, its seemingly artificial fingerprint. This leaves the most thrilling possibility hanging in the air, that for just over 1 minute in 1977, we may have inadvertently tuned into a transmission from an intelligence not our own. The idea that we heard a fleeting broadcast from a civilization hundreds or thousands of light years away is a haunting one. Was it a targeted message, a deliberate beacon aimed at the habitable zone of our galaxy? Or was it merely a massive, omnidirectional burst of energy from some unimaginably powerful piece of technology, a piece of cosmic radar or a starship's engine flare that just happened to sweep across our planet for a single fortunate moment? The fact that it was never repeated could suggest a catastrophic event that destroyed the source, or simply that we are listening for a conversation in an ocean where most messages are ships passing in the eternal night. The legacy of the WOW signal is far greater than just its 72 seconds of data. It stands as a monument to patience and the power of curiosity, a reminder that profound discoveries can emerge from the meticulous, often tedious work of science. It fuels our collective imagination, a single data point that suggests the universe might be far noisier and far more interesting than we ever dared to hope. It is the ghost that every new radio telescope, from the Allen Telescope Array to the Future Square Kilometer Array, is hoping to hear from again. It is the reason we keep listening, straining to hear another whisper in the static, hoping that one day another sequence of characters will print out, and this time it will have something more to say. But few space zombie stories are as official or as baffling as the one that rockets in at number 14. NASA's own imager for Magnetopause to Aurora Global Exploration Satellite, better known by its heroic acronym IMAGE. Launched in March 2000, its $5,000 mission was to do something never before attempted: paint a complete global picture of Earth's magnetosphere, the vast invisible bubble of magnetism that protects our planet from the sun's relentless solar wind. For 5 years, it was a resounding success, returning breathtaking data and imagery that transformed our understanding of space weather. But in December 2005, during a routine pass, the satellite suddenly and unexpectedly fell silent. After a month of fruitless attempts to re-establish contact, NASA officially declared the mission over, and Image joined the growing list of derelicts silently circling our planet. For 12 long years, that was the end of the story. The satellite's orbital path was tracked, as all sizable pieces of space junk are, but it was considered just another dead machine. Then, in January 2018, an amateur astronomer named Scott Tilley was conducting a personal search for a different lost spacecraft, the classified US government satellite Zuma, which had reportedly failed after launch. As he swept his radio telescope across the sky, he stumbled upon an unexpected signal broadcasting from an entirely different object. The signal was strong, and it was coming from a satellite that wasn't supposed to be talking to anyone. After cross-referencing the orbital data with public catalogs, he made an astonishing identification. The source was NAS, a long-dead image satellite, broadcasting a signal as if it had just woken up from a long nap. The news sent shockwaves through the space science community. NASA engineers at the Goddard Space Flight Center, some of whom had worked on the original mission, scrambled to confirm the discovery. Using their massive deep space network antennas, they were not only able to detect the signal, but miraculously to decode it. The data packets contained information about the satellite's internal status, including its power levels and the temperature of its onboard systems. To everyone's amazement, the readings indicated the satellite was largely healthy and fully functional. After over a decade of radio silence, Image had somehow performed a complete systems reboot all on its own and was now phoning home asking for instructions. What followed was a frantic and exhilarating race against time, a real-life technological thriller. The original engineers, some of whom had since retired, were called back to help. They had to dust off 20-year-old software and manuals, rebuilding the entire ground communication system from scratch because the technology used to talk to Image had long since been obsolete and decommissioned. For a brief, glorious period, they managed two-way communication, successfully commanding the satellite to turn on its science payload and begin collecting data again. It was a monumental achievement, a Lazarus mission brought back from the grave, but the victory was short-lived. Just as engineers were beginning to troubleshoot the original fault that caused the 2005 failure, contact was lost again in August 2018. A final attempt to re-establish communication in early 2019 failed. Image had spoken after 12 years of silence, only to go quiet once more. So what caused this incredible resurrection? The leading theory is a perfect storm of orbital mechanics and stubborn engineering. The dominant hypothesis for the original failure was a sudden power surge that tripped a vital internal safety feature, a solid-state power controller, effectively throwing a circuit breaker that could not be reset from the ground. NASA engineers believe that after 12 years in the deep freeze of space, the satellite's batteries completely drained. Then, during a particularly fortuitous orbital pass, its solar panels would have been positioned for maximum exposure to the sun. The theory suggests this massive influx of power hitting a completely dead system might have been enough to effectively jump-start the tripped controller, rebooting the entire satellite as if it were a desktop computer after a power outage. It was a 1 in a billion chance, a cosmic alignment that brought a forgotten machine back to life just long enough to deliver one final, mysterious message before slipping back into its eternal slumber, leaving us with a brilliant reminder of the enduring and often unpredictable legacy we have placed in the sky. Now for a tale that adds a little flavor to the final frontier, proving that even in the vast, cold expanse of space, things can get a bit spicy. Securing the number 15 spot on our weirdest things list is a lost container of garlic, a humble culinary artifact that escaped its earthly kitchen to become a permanent cosmic traveler. While astronauts train for years to handle complex machinery and conduct delicate experiments in microgravity, they also have to perform the most mundane of tasks, eating. And just like anyone trying to enjoy a meal, sometimes things get dropped. But in space, there's no picking it up off the floor. A simple fumble can send a pepper shaker, a blob of juice, or in this case, a container of garlic on a one-way trip into the void. The story is a composite of several real, though less dramatically documented, events. During life aboard the International Space Station, food preparation is a carefully choreographed dance. Spices and condiments are essential to make the pre-packaged, rehydratable meals palatable, but they are often stored in squeezed tubes or plastic containers to prevent crumbs and mess. In the weightless environment, these items are typically secured with Velcro or magnets, but during the hustle of a meal with a crew, it's not unheard of for a container to be momentarily untethered. A casual handoff might be slightly misjudged, or a container might not be secured properly after use. The result is a slow, gentle drift away from the dining area. If it floats into an air current from a ventilation duct, it can be carried into a hard-to-reach corner behind panels or equipment, effectively lost to the crew for the remainder of the mission. But the true cosmic journey begins if such an item is ever jettisoned. The ISS has a strict waste management protocol. Accumulated trash, from used food packaging to worn-out clothes, is regularly loaded into a disposable cargo spacecraft like a Northrop Grumman Cygnus or a Russian Progress vehicle. These spacecraft are then deliberately undocked and sent on a suicide plunge into Earth's atmosphere, where they incinerate over a remote stretch of the Pacific Ocean. However, the process of loading this trash isn't always perfectly tidy. It's conceivable that during the process of stuffing bags into the spacecraft, a small, long-lost container of spices could accidentally be knocked loose and float out of the open hatch during the transfer, escaping into space before the garbage ship is sealed up and sent away. Once free, this tiny capsule of flavor would achieve its own independent orbit around the Earth. For a time, it would trail along near the space station, a silent culinary ghost. But without any means of control, the drag of the tenuous upper atmosphere would slowly but surely pull it down. Its fate would be the same as the lost tool bag, a fiery, final descent. But for a brief period, it would be up there, a testament to a universal human experience, spilling something in the kitchen. That just happens to have the most spectacular backdrop imaginable. It's a wonderfully absurd thought that somewhere amidst the grand scientific instruments and modules of a multi-billion-dollar space station, a single clove of garlic might be hiding, waiting to be discovered by a future astronaut on a cleaning spree, or making a break for it to forever season the cosmos. But our journey takes an even more mind-bending turn as we venture into the realm of the truly colossal, to a mystery that challenges the very foundations of modern cosmology. At number 16, we confront a phenomenon so vast and so strange that it seems to pull at the fabric of reality itself. This is the enigma known as dark flow. Imagine the universe after the Big Bang, an immense expanse where galaxies and galaxy clusters are all rushing outward, carried by the expansion of space itself. That expansion should be random and uniform in all directions, a grand, chaotic dispersal. Yet, when astronomers began to meticulously map the motion of these immense structures, they found something that defied all expectation. Entire clusters of galaxies, each containing thousands of galaxies like our own Milky Way, appear to be moving in a coordinated, stream-like motion toward a single region of space, a cosmic current flowing against the tide of universal expansion. The discovery was made by a team led by astronomer Alexander Kashlinsky, using data from the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe, a spacecraft designed to study the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, known as the cosmic microwave background. This relic radiation fills the entire sky and should be almost perfectly uniform. However, as these gigantic clusters move at incredible speeds, their hot gas interacts with the cosmic microwave background photons in a specific way, creating a subtle but detectable distortion known as the kinematic Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect. By analyzing this faint imprint, the team could trace the velocity and direction of these clusters. To their astonishment, they found that hundreds of clusters were all streaming at velocities of nearly 1,000 kilometers per second toward a specific point in the sky between the constellations of Centaurus and Vela, a motion that simply cannot be explained by the known gravitational forces within the observable universe. This is where the mystery plunges into the depths of the profound. The gravitational pull of all the visible matter, and even the invisible dark matter, that we can detect in our cosmos is not nearly strong enough to cause this coordinated motion. The source of this immense gravitational tug must lie beyond the edge of what we can see. According to the standard model of cosmology, the universe we can observe is a sphere with a radius of about 46 billion light-years, limited by the distance light has been able to travel since the Big Bang. But the dark flow suggests that the massive structures causing this motion are located far, far beyond that horizon. This implies one of two incredible possibilities. Either our universe is much, much larger than we ever thought, and we are seeing the gravitational influence of superstructures in that unseen volume, or something truly paradigm-shifting is at work. The most thrilling hypothesis is that the dark flow is a gravitational remnant from the instant of the Big Bang, a cosmic tidal force exerted by a region of space-time that was pushed beyond our observational horizon during the initial period of inflation, when the universe expanded faster than the speed of light. This would mean the flow is evidence of something that has been theorized but never proven, the multiverse. The mysterious pull could be coming from another universe, a separate bubble of space-time entirely different from our own, yet gravitationally entangled with ours since the dawn of creation. It's a concept that stretches the limits of physics and imagination, suggesting that our entire cosmos is but one island in an infinite archipelago of universes, and we can feel the tide from the shore of the next island over. Of course, the scientific community continues to debate the findings vigorously. Some researchers propose that systematic errors in the data analysis could be producing an illusion of motion where none exists. Others are searching for more conventional explanations within the confines of our observable universe, though none have yet provided a satisfactory answer. The European Space Agency's Planck satellite, with its even more precise measurements of the cosmic microwave background, was hoped to settle the debate. While its data did not confirm the specific dark flow as strongly as the original study, it did find evidence of anomalous, large-scale flows that continue to puzzle cosmologists. The mystery is far from solved. The dark flow remains one of the most significant and controversial anomalies in modern astronomy, a ghostly current in the ocean of space that points toward mysteries lying in the unseeable deep, challenging us to question not just what we know about the universe, but what we know about the very nature of reality. Yet for every mysterious current in the cosmos, there exists a particle so elusive it makes dark flow seem almost obvious by comparison. Slicing into the number 17 spot are the true phantoms of the universe, neutrinos. These subatomic particles are so inconceivably tiny and ghostly that trillions of them are passing through your body every second of every day, utterly without effect. Born in the nuclear fires of stars, in the cataclysmic explosions of supernova, and in the violent hearts of black holes and neutron stars, these high-energy messengers carry information across the universe completely unimpeded, traveling in perfectly straight lines from their source at nearly the speed of light. They are the ultimate cosmic couriers, but their very nature, having almost no mass and no electric charge, makes them nearly impossible to catch. This is where the story gets wonderfully strange, because to hunt a ghost, you must build a ghost trap on an almost unimaginable scale. The most spectacular of these traps isn't actually in space, but it uses the Earth itself as a fundamental part of its cosmic detector. Nestled deep in the Antarctic ice at the South Pole is the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, a facility that turns a cubic kilometer of the purest, oldest ice on the planet into the world's most unlikely scientific instrument. Engineers didn't just build a lab on the ice. They used a high-pressure hot water drill to melt 86 holes, each over 2.4 kilometers deep, into the glacial sheet. Into these holes, they lowered 60 basketball-sized digital optical modules on long strings, creating a grid of 5,160 sensors frozen in place, waiting in the perfect darkness a mile below the surface. The entire principle of detection is a masterpiece of indirect observation. The sensors aren't waiting for the neutrino itself. Catching one directly is all but impossible. Instead, they are waiting for the extremely rare occasion when a high-energy neutrino, on its billion-year journey across the cosmos, actually collides with the nucleus of an atom in that ancient Antarctic ice. This catastrophic impact creates a new particle called a muon, which, thanks to the laws of physics, travels faster than light can travel through that same ice. This creates a shockwave of blue light known as Cherenkov radiation, a luminous cone that spreads through the frozen water. It is this faint, ethereal blue flash that the sensitive optical modules are designed to detect, a fleeting signature of a cosmic ghost that left its mark on our world. What makes Ice Cube and projects like it so revolutionary is that they effectively use our own planet as a giant particle detector. By pinpointing the direction of the incoming muon's path, astronomers can trace a straight line back through the Earth and out into the cosmos to locate the neutrino's point of origin. This has opened an entirely new window on the universe, one that doesn't rely on traditional light, radio waves, or X-rays. In 2018, Ice Cube did just that, detecting a single high-energy neutrino and alerting telescopes around the world to swing toward its origin point. They pinpointed a blazing galaxy over 4 billion light-years away, a blazar with a supermassive black hole at its core shooting a jet of radiation directly at Earth. For the first time, we had caught a ghostly particle and used it to identify a specific cosmic accelerator, proving that neutrinos can act as faithful guides to the most violent and energetic events in the universe. This marks the dawn of neutrino astronomy, a field that promises to reveal secrets hidden from every other form of observation. These particles flow directly from the hearts of the events that create them, unaffected by magnetic fields or interstellar dust, delivering pure, undistorted information across billions of light years. We are now building an ever larger network of these extraordinary detectors, from the deep ice of Antarctica to the depths of the Mediterranean Sea, with projects like KM3NET, all working in concert to build a map of the universe not as it looks, but as it is written in the language of ghosts. But if listening to the faint whispers of cosmic neutrinos feels like astronomy at its most subtle, our next entry plunges us into a symphony of the utterly terrifying. Claiming the number 18 spot are the haunting, otherworldly sounds of Saturn itself. Thanks to the incredible Cassini mission, which spent 13 years orbiting the ringed giant, we have audio recordings of the planet's radio emissions, and they sound less like a celestial body and more like the score of a science fiction horror film. This isn't music or sound in the traditional sense. Space is a vacuum, after all, so there's no air to carry sound waves. Instead, these are radio waves, natural oscillations of charged particles trapped in Saturn's powerful magnetic field, which scientists have translated into the audio spectrum so our human ears can perceive them. The result is a chilling chorus of shrieks, wails, and static hisses that seem ripped from a nightmare. The primary source of this cosmic static is the intricate dance between Saturn and its innermost moon, Enceladus. This small, ice-covered world is one of the most geologically active places in the solar system, with massive geysers near its south pole constantly erupting and shooting plumes of water vapor and ice crystals hundreds of miles into space. This material doesn't just fall back down, it escapes Enceladus's weak gravity entirely, feeding a giant, donut-shaped ring of particles that orbits Saturn alongside the Moon. This torus of fresh, electrically neutral material is then bombarded by the radiation and plasma trapped within Saturn's immense magnetosphere. The collisions strip electrons from the water molecules, creating a cloud of charged ions and electrons. These newly charged particles then get caught in the planet's magnetic grip, spiraling along the field lines and generating intense bursts of radio noise in the process. It's a continuous cycle. A moon cries out and a giant planet answers. Cassini's radio and plasma wave science instrument was perfectly positioned to eavesdrop on this conversation. As the spacecraft dove through different regions of the magnetosphere, it recorded these radio emissions. When scientists shifted the frequencies down into the range of human hearing, the sounds that emerged were profoundly unsettling. One recording, often described as Saturn's screaming, features a rapid, pulsing static that rises and falls in pitch with an almost anxious rhythm. Another captures long, drawn-out wails that seem to echo across unimaginable distances. These aren't random. Their patterns and intensities are direct traces of activity within the magnetosphere, allowing scientists to diagnose the health and dynamics of this invisible, magnetic bubble in a way that visual images alone never could. The value of this eerie soundtrack goes far beyond the creepy vibes. For planetary scientists, it's a vital diagnostic tool. By listening to the changing pitch and intensity of these radio waves, they can map the density of particles around Saturn, measure the rotation rate of its deep interior, a surprisingly difficult task since the planet has no solid surface, and understand how its magnetic field interacts with the solar wind. The sounds reveal a world of constant, violent activity, where magnetic field lines snap and reconnect, accelerating particles to near light speed and creating vast, invisible auroras around the planet's poles. It transforms our perception of Saturn from a serene, silent beauty into a dynamic, roaring beast, its invisible magnetic forces constantly churning and shouting into the void. This auditory window reminds us that the solar system is not a still life painting. It is a living, breathing, and howling system of immense forces, and sometimes the most beautiful truths are hidden in the most terrifying sounds. But what if the true treasures of our solar system aren't found on distant, icy moons, but deep within the hearts of the planets themselves? Glittering into the number 19 spot is a theory so opulent it seems stolen from a fantastical tale. The possibility that the ice giants Uranus and Neptune are home to vast, surreal oceans of liquid diamond, complete with floating diamond iceberg. While these distant worlds appear from Earth as serene, blue-green marbles, their interiors are cauldrons of extreme physics, where common elements are transformed into states beyond our wildest imagination. The journey to this diamond rain begins not with luxury, but with the most basic and abundant molecules in the universe. The primary ingredients for this cosmic alchemy are surprisingly simple: hydrogen and carbon. We know from spectroscopic observations and planetary formation models that these two elements are plentiful in the composition of gas and ice giants. High in the atmospheres of these planets where pressures are lower, these elements form simple molecules like methane, one carbon atom bonded to 4 hydrogen atoms. But as you descend, the environment becomes increasingly hellish. The pressures rise to millions of times that of Earth's surface, and temperatures soar to thousands of degrees, though this heat is not from the sun but from the immense gravitational compression and residual heat from the planet's formation. In this crushing, infernal environment, the stable molecular bonds we know on Earth are ruthlessly torn apart. This is where the magic happens. Under these extreme conditions, the hydrogen and carbon in methane molecules are subjected to forces so great that they cannot maintain their familiar structure. The incredibly strong bonds between the carbon atoms in the methane are shattered, and the hydrogen is effectively squeezed out, much like wringing water from a sponge. What's left is a sea of elemental carbon atoms, now free to form new alliances, and the most stable, favored structure for carbon under such intense heat and pressure is the same one we covet in jewelry stores, the tightly knit crystalline lattice of diamond. Scientists have recreated these conditions in laboratories using powerful lasers or shockwaves to compress carbon-rich materials, and they have indeed observed the formation of tiny nanodiamonds, providing tangible proof that this fantastical process is not just possible but probable. The true wonder, however, is not just the creation of diamond, but its behavior. The prevailing theory suggests that near the cores of these planets, the conditions are so extreme that this carbon doesn't just form solid diamond, it may actually melt. This would create slushy zones or even entire layers of liquid carbon, a shimmering, metallic ocean that behaves like a fluid. And just as water ice floats on liquid water on Earth, solid diamond could theoretically float on this dense, liquid carbon sea. Imagine the scene: colossal icebergs of diamond, some potentially the size of mountains, slowly drifting and bobbing in a dark, convective ocean of their own melted form. It's a landscape of breathtaking and unimaginable wealth, hidden away under thousands of miles of dense atmospheric gases and exotic ices. The implications of this for planetary science are profound. This diamond precipitation isn't just a curiosity, it's a key part of the planet's internal energy system. As diamonds form and begin to rain down through the layers of the planet, they release gravitational potential energy. This falling mass generates heat as it sinks, much like a meteor heating up as it falls through Earth's atmosphere. This internal heating could significantly influence the planet's thermal dynamics, convection patterns, and even the generation of its magnetic field, which in the case of Uranus and Neptune is peculiarly offset and tilted. Understanding this bizarre form of weather is crucial to solving the mysteries of these distant, enigmatic worlds. So while we may never send a probe to mine these cosmic gemstones, their theoretical existence expands our understanding of the universe's diversity. It reveals that the elements common to our everyday lives can, under the right conditions, manifest in states of such surreal and extreme beauty. The ice giants, often overlooked in favor of the gas giants or rocky planets, may well be the solar system's most fantastical vaults, guarding oceans of liquid diamond and icebergs of unimaginable scale, a permanent reminder that nature's creativity will always surpass our own. Yet drifting through the void alongside these scientific wonders are echoes of a far more chilling nature, whispers from the early space race that speak not of discovery, but of loss and cover-up. Entering our countdown at number 20 is one of the most persistent and haunting urban legends of the final frontier, the tale of the lost cosmonauts. This conspiracy theory suggests that before Yuri Gagarin's historic first orbit in 1961, the Soviet Union had already sent other men and women into space, and that these pioneers tragically died there, their final, agonizing transmissions secretly recorded by amateur radio operators listening in on the other side of the Iron Curtain. The legend is built upon a foundation of eerie audio recordings, the most famous of which is known as the Giudica Cordiglia brothers tapes. These two Italian amateur radio enthusiasts claim to have captured several suspicious transmissions from orbit in the late 1950s and early 60s. One recording, allegedly from May 1960, features the labored, slowing heartbeat of a human and the sound of suffocation, said to be a cosmonaut dying as their craft depressurized. Another, from November 1963, is perhaps the most chilling. A female voice, identified as cosmonaut Ludmila Tokaviova, is heard desperately pleading for help as her spacecraft is pulled off course and away from Earth, her final words reportedly, "I see fire." "I see fire, I am going to die." These tapes, paired with the Soviet Union's notorious culture of secrecy during the Cold War, created a perfect storm for speculation. The idea that a nation would sacrifice its heroes for propaganda victory and then bury the evidence seemed, to many, entirely plausible. When we subject these stories to the bright light of historical and technical scrutiny, however, the myth begins to unravel. No physical evidence, no wreckage, no official documents, no credible witness testimonies from within the Soviet space program has ever surfaced to support the claims. The Soviet Union, while secretive, was also meticulous in its record-keeping, and the eventual declassification of its archives failed to reveal any hidden, fatal manned missions. The technical arguments are even more compelling. The equipment used by the Giudica Cordiglia brothers was simply not sophisticated enough to reliably track and decode VHF transmissions from a fast-moving object in low Earth orbit, especially not with the clarity they claimed. The signals they captured were far more likely to have been intercepted ground-based communications, stray fragments of military or aviation traffic, or even clever hoaxes. The famous "I see fire" transmission, for instance, bears a striking resemblance to audio from a Soviet science fiction radio play of the era, a dramatic production that was broadcast and could have been easily misidentified. So why does this grim legend persist with such power decades later? Its endurance is a testament to the potent cocktail of Cold War anxiety, genuine human tragedy in the pursuit of spaceflight, and our innate fascination with ghost stories. The early space race was a terrifyingly dangerous endeavor, and real people did die in its pursuit, though almost exclusively in ground-based testing and training accidents. The lost cosmonaut myth serves as a dark, symbolic grave for all those unknown sacrifices, a way to give a name and a voice to the inherent risks that were so often downplayed by both superpowers. It transforms the abstract fear of technological failure into a specific human narrative of betrayal and silence, a story that is far more emotionally resonant than a simple statistical probability of disaster. Ultimately, the lost cosmonauts remain a powerful cultural phantom, a warning tale etched into the folklore of space exploration. They represent the shadow side of our ambition, the unspoken fear that for every triumphant first we celebrate, there might be a forgotten failure we never knew about. While they almost certainly never existed as the legend describes, their story continues to float in the cultural ether, a permanent satellite of our collective imagination, reminding us that the greatest mysteries are not always what is out there in the void, but what we choose to believe happened there. But perhaps the most ambitious cosmic map ever conceived points us toward our next destination, a region of space so massive and mysterious that it literally warps the path of our entire galaxy. Holding the number 21 position is a gravitational enigma of truly epic proportions, the Great Attractor. Imagine the universe as a vast, flowing river, with galaxies instead of water droplets all moving in a grand cosmic current. For decades, astronomers have known that our Milky Way is not adrift aimlessly. It is moving at an incredible speed of over 600 kilometers per second relative to the afterglow of the Big Bang. But for a long time, the source of this immense pull was a complete mystery, a hidden force tugging us toward a specific point in the sky near the southern constellations of Norma and Triangulum Australe. This destination earned its dramatic name, the Great Attractor, in the 1980s, when the first large-scale maps of galaxy motions revealed this colossal, concentrated flow. It wasn't just our galaxy being pulled. It was our entire local group of galaxies, along with the immense Virgo supercluster it belongs to, and thousands of other galaxies, all streaming toward this single, unseen focal point. The gravitational force required to orchestrate this motion is almost incomprehensible, equivalent to the pull of tens of thousands of Milky Ways. This suggested the existence of a previously unknown concentration of mass, a supercluster, or a massive knot in the cosmic web, so huge it could dominate the motion of everything in our intergalactic neighborhood. There was just one monumental problem with finding it. It lies directly behind the Milky Way's own galactic plane, in a region astronomers call the zone of avoidance. From our vantage point inside the galaxy, this area is effectively a blind spot, obscured by thick clouds of gas and dust and the dense, brilliant band of stars that make up the disk of our own Milky Way. It's like trying to see a distant mountain range through a perpetual, impenetrable fog bank. Traditional optical telescopes were useless for peering into this zone, leaving the heart of the Great Attractor hidden from view and fueling decades of speculation about what could possibly be there. The breakthrough came not from traditional stargazing, but from technology that could see through the cosmic fog. Infrared and radio telescopes, whose wavelengths can penetrate the dust that blocks visible light, began to slowly map the hidden structures behind the zone of avoidance. What they revealed was not a single impossible object, but something almost as staggering: the core of the Laniakea supercluster. Laniakea, a Hawaiian word meaning immeasurable heaven, is the gravitational continent our Milky Way calls home. This vast structure, spanning over 500 million light-years, contains roughly 100,000 galaxies. The Great Attractor is now understood to be the incredibly dense gravitational center of Laniakea, a massive knot where several gigantic filaments of the cosmic web intersect, creating a gravitational basin so deep that all the galaxies for millions of light-years around are flowing into it. At the very heart of this basin lies the Norma cluster, a massive gathering of galaxies, and an even more immense conglomeration of matter known as the Able 3627 cluster. Together, these structures form the primary engine of the attraction, their combined gravitational might pulling us inward, yet the story doesn't end there. Our entire Laniakea supercluster, with the Great Attractor at its center, is itself being pulled by an even larger and more distant gravitational force, an entity known as the Shapley Attractor, located over 600 million light-years away. This reveals a universe of nested hierarchies, a gravitational matryoshka doll where we are drawn to a local center, which is in turn drawn to a greater one in an endless chain of cosmic influence. The discovery and ongoing investigation of the Great Attractor fundamentally changed our understanding of the universe's large-scale structure. It moved us from seeing galaxies as isolated islands to recognizing them as part of a vast, interconnected cosmic web, with rivers of dark matter guiding the flow of visible galaxies along invisible highways. It serves as a profound lesson in cosmic humility, demonstrating that even from our privileged position within a galaxy, our view of the cosmos is still obstructed, and the most powerful forces shaping our journey often remain hidden, waiting for the right technology and the right perspective to reveal the true map of the heavens. While the ghostly signals of lost cosmonauts and the immense pull of the Great Attractor speak to grand mysteries, sometimes the most pervasive weirdness in space comes from objects of breathtaking simplicity. Drifting into the number 22 spot on our list is a type of space junk so common it's practically the glitter of the cosmos. Shreds of multi-layer insulation, or MLI, more commonly known as space blankets. If you've ever watched footage from a spacewalk, you've likely seen this material. It's that incredibly thin, dazzlingly shiny, crinkly-looking foil that coats the outside of spacecraft, satellites, and space stations, often appearing to flutter away like metallic confetti in the slow-motion ballet of microgravity. This material is a masterpiece of engineering designed for a single, critical purpose: thermal control. In space, a spacecraft is subjected to the most extreme temperature swings imaginable. On the side facing the sun, temperatures can soar to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, while the side in shadow can plunge to negative 250 degrees. MLI is the ultimate protector against these extremes. It's not a single sheet, but a complex sandwich of incredibly thin layers. Typically, it consists of a dozen or more sheets of plastic film like Captain, each vapor coated with a tiny amount of aluminum or gold to make it reflective. These layers are separated by thin mesh scrims, creating tiny gaps of vacuum between them. This intricate structure works by reflecting radiant heat from the sun back into space, while also trapping what little heat is inside the spacecraft, acting as a super-efficient thermos for multi-billion-dollar equipment. The problem and the source of the weirdness arises from its delicacy. MLI is designed to be incredibly lightweight, which means it's also incredibly fragile. It can be easily torn by a micrometeoroid impact no larger than a grain of sand, snagged and ripped by an astronaut's glove during a routine inspection, or gradually degraded and peeled away by the relentless cycling between extreme heat and cold. During spacewalks, it's not uncommon for tiny pieces that were already loosened to break free and drift away, because the material is so light and offers such a large surface area relative to its mass. Even the faintest push from outgassing or the gentle nudge of a spacecraft's thrusters can be enough to send it on an independent journey. Once free, these pieces become something truly surreal. They don't just drift listlessly, they catch the sunlight in a spectacular way. A single shred of MLI, tumbling end over end, can flare with the intensity of a bright star for a few seconds before suddenly winking out as its angle changes, only to flash again moments later. To an observer on the ground with a telescope, or even to an astronaut on the ISS, these objects don't look like trash. They look like pulsing, erratic stars or tiny, silent fireworks. Their behavior is so unpredictable and their appearance so unnaturally brilliant that they are responsible for a significant number of UFO reports from amateur astronomers who are genuinely witnessing something strange and artificial, even if its origin is mundane. The greater concern, however, isn't just the confusion they cause, but the danger they represent. While a single piece of foil might seem harmless in the orbital environment, where relative speeds can exceed 20,000 kilometers per hour, even a flake of paint can carry the energy of a rifle bullet. These shreds of insulation contribute to the growing cloud of orbital debris, adding to the cascading threat known as the Kessler syndrome, where one collision creates more debris, leading to more collisions in a runaway chain reaction. They are a glittering, beautiful, and persistent pollution, a byproduct of our presence in space that will remain in orbit for decades, silently circling the planet and reminding us that our every step into the cosmos, even the most protective one, leaves a lasting and often dazzling mark. And now we arrive at a celestial mystery so strange it earned the nickname of the zombie planet, an otherworldly object that appeared to die and then return from the grave, forever changing our understanding of its distant star system. Claiming the number 23 spot is the baffling case of Fomalhaut b, an exoplanet candidate whose bizarre behavior has left astronomers questioning everything they thought they knew about planetary formation. The story begins with the star Fomalhaut, one of the brightest stars in the night sky, a young, blazing sun-like star located a mere 25 light-years from Earth. It's surrounded by a magnificent graphic disk of dust and debris, a cosmic bullseye that has made it a prime target for astronomers and a favorite poster child for textbooks illustrating how planetary systems form. Right there, nestled within a vast gap in that iconic disk, Hubble Space Telescope images in 2004 and 2006 revealed a tiny, brilliant pinprick of light. It appeared to be a massive exoplanet, several times the mass of Jupiter, orbiting its star at a vast distance, about 4 times the distance between Neptune and our own Sun. The discovery was electrifying. It was one of the first exoplanets ever to be directly imaged, a world we could actually see rather than infer from the wobble or dimming of its star. For years, Fomalhaut b was celebrated as a crown jewel of exoplanet science, a direct glimpse of a giant world in another system. But almost immediately, the object started acting weird. The first puzzling clue was its incredible brightness. Fomalhaut b was shining far too brightly in visible light for a planet of its supposed age and size. A giant planet that young should have cooled down significantly, glowing only faintly in infrared light as it radiated its leftover formation heat. Yet here it was, blazing like a beacon. Then came the orbital anomalies. Instead of following a neat, predictable path that would neatly explain the sharp inner edge of the debris disk, its movement seemed slightly erratic. The final, most dramatic twist came years later when astronomers went to take another look. When the Hubble telescope revisited the Fomalhaut system in 2014, the planet was gone. It had simply vanished without a trace. The object that had been so clearly present a decade earlier had completely disappeared, leaving behind a mystery that sent scientists scrambling for an explanation. The leading theory that emerged is as spectacular as the disappearance itself. Astronomers now believe that Fomalhaut b was never a planet at all. Instead, the most compelling explanation is that Hubble witnessed the aftermath of a catastrophic collision, a cosmic car crash of unimaginable scale. The brilliant point of light was likely a colossal cloud of fine, highly reflective dust particles, expanding from the site where two large planetesimals, each perhaps hundreds of miles across, smashed into each other. This theory elegantly explains all the anomalies. The extreme brightness was caused by sunlight scattering off countless tiny dust grains. The apparent orbital weirdness was due to the fact that this expanding cloud wasn't a single, solid object obeying strict orbital mechanics, but a diffuse swarm slowly being pushed and sculpted by the radiation pressure from the brilliant Fomalhaut star itself. Over the years following the collision, this dust cloud would have done exactly what was observed. It expanded and dissipated. The tiny particles, constantly bombarded by starlight, would have been blown outward, spreading them so thin that they eventually became completely undetectable to Hubble's instruments. The zombie planet didn't die, it simply faded away, its constituent particles perhaps joining the larger debris disk or being ejected from the system entirely. This single observation provided a rare and incredible snapshot of a violent, dynamic process that is usually hidden from our view. We believe such colossal collisions are common in the chaotic early lives of planetary systems. It's how planets grow and evolve. But to have caught one in the act was a moment of incredible serendipity. The weirdness of the Fomalhaut system doesn't end with the vanishing act. The entire environment is a gravitational puzzle box. The star is part of a triple star system, with two other stars swinging around it on wide orbits, their gravitational influence potentially stirring up the debris disk and causing all sorts of chaotic interactions. Furthermore, the precise structure of that famous dust ring suggests the undeniable gravitational presence of real, unseen planets shepherding the material, carving out those sharp edges. So while Fomalhaut b itself may have been a ghost, a temporary cosmic mirage, its dramatic appearance and disappearance have likely pointed us toward the true, hidden planets lurking in the shadows, their gravity silently shaping the system we see today. It's a profound reminder that in astronomy, what you see is not always what you get, and sometimes the most spectacular discoveries are the ones that vanish before our very eyes, leaving behind only clues to a much larger and more fascinating story. So while some objects in space vanish like cosmic mirages, others are sent up with very deliberate and delightfully human purposes in mind. That brings us to thing 24 on our list, an experiment that proves our ambition for the stars is fueled by more than just science sometimes. It's also fueled by a good cold pint. Welcome to the story of Space Beer, a real research project that sent barley seeds to the International Space Station not just to study botany, but to lay the groundwork for future off-world breweries and by extension, the very concept of a happy hour in zero gravity. The experiment was a collaboration between the Russian space agency Roscosmos and a Japanese brewing company, and its premise was both simple and brilliant. They wanted to understand how barley seeds would germinate and grow in the complete absence of gravity. Barley is, of course, one of the 4 essential ingredients in beer, alongside water, hops, and yeast. On Earth, its growth is dictated by gravity. The roots know to grow downward into the soil to seek water and nutrients, while the shoot knows to grow upward toward the sunlight. But what happens when you remove that fundamental guide? Would the seeds sprout at all? And if they did, would their roots and shoots curl aimlessly in a confused tangle, or would they find a new way to orient themselves? For several months, a small capsule containing these precious seeds resided aboard the ISS, subjected to the same conditions as hundreds of other scientific experiments. The results, when the seeds were returned to Earth and analyzed, were fascinating. The barley did indeed germinate in space, but its growth pattern was utterly alien compared to its earthly cousins. The roots did not exhibit their typical orderly downward growth. Instead, they grew in a far more disorganized, twisting manner, exploring their environment in all directions without gravity's strict guidance. This might seem like a small detail, but for plant biologists and aspiring space brewers, it's a critical piece of the puzzle. It reveals that plants rely on a complex combination of cues, with gravity being just one powerful influence among others, like moisture gradients and light direction. The implications of this research stretch far beyond the brewery. Understanding how to reliably grow crops in space is an absolute necessity for long-duration missions to the Moon or Mars. Astronauts cannot survive on pre-packaged meals alone for years on end. They will need to become farmers, cultivating fresh food to supplement their diet and aid in recycling the station's atmosphere. Barley is a fantastic candidate for these space farms. It's a hardy grain, it's nutritious, and as this experiment highlights, it can be used for more than just sustenance. The ability to produce beer, wine, or other fermented beverages in space isn't just about recreation. It's a profound psychological factor. These familiar comforts of home could play a vital role in maintaining morale and a sense of normalcy for crews isolated millions of miles from everyone they know. There's also a wonderful, humorous symbolism to the entire endeavor. Imagine those barley seeds floating serenely inside their module, utterly unaware that they are the vanguard of interplanetary pub culture. They represent a future where the first settlers on Mars might not only be harvesting potatoes, but also malting barley for a celebratory brew after a long day of terraforming. It's a quintessentially human aspiration. We look at the infinite, challenging void of space, and our immediate thoughts aren't just about survival. They're about community, celebration, and the simple, ancient pleasure of sharing a drink. This experiment connects our most advanced technological ambitions with one of humanity's oldest and most beloved crafts, brewing a narrative that is equal parts science, ingenuity, and hopeful optimism for a future where even in the farthest reaches of space, we can still enjoy the small, earthly pleasures that make life worth living. Now for a cosmic whodunit that left a mark on the moon itself, literally. Arriving at number 25 on our countdown is the baffling case of the mystery rocket, an unidentified object that slammed into the lunar surface in March 2022, leaving behind not one, but two craters and a trail of unanswered questions that continues to stump astronomers to this day. The story begins months earlier when veteran asteroid tracker Bill Gray first identified the object on a collision course with the moon. He initially, and quite reasonably, identified it as the discarded upper stage of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launched years prior. It was a straightforward conclusion. Such rocket bodies are common, and their trajectories can often be predicted far into the future. But as more data was analyzed and other experts weighed in, that simple explanation began to unravel. The plot thickened considerably when astronomers realized the object's light curve. The pattern of its brightness as it tumbled didn't match the predictable spin of a cylindrical Falcon 9 booster. Furthermore, orbital data began to suggest a different point of origin entirely. A team at the University of Arizona conducted a spectroscopic analysis, studying the light reflected off the object to determine its composition. Their findings pointed the finger in a completely different direction, not toward an American rocket, but toward a Chinese one, specifically a Long March 3C booster launched as part of the Chang 5T-1 mission back in 2014. Chinese officials, however, publicly denied this, insisting their rocket's upper stage had safely burned up in Earth's atmosphere years earlier. And so the mystery was born, a ghost rocket with no confirmed owner, tumbling silently through the void on a path of certain destruction. The final act of this mystery played out on the far side of the Moon, out of direct view from Earth on March 4, 2022. The impact was monitored by NASA, a lunar reconnaissance orbiter, which later swung around to photograph the aftermath. What it found was the most bizarre detail of all. The impact had created not a single crater, as would be expected from a spent rocket booster, but two. An eastern crater roughly 18 meters wide and a western crater about 16 meters wide, overlapping each other. This unusual double crater was unprecedented. It suggested the object had large masses at both ends, unlike a typical rocket stage, which is mostly an empty fuel tank with a heavy engine at the bottom. This peculiar structure only deepened the puzzle, making the object's true identity even more elusive. So what was it? The double crater remains the strongest piece of evidence. It implies an object with an unusual and significant weight distribution. The leading theory is that it was indeed a rocket body, but one that still had an additional, undisclosed payload attached to its forward end. This could have been an undisclosed counterweight or a secondary experimental package that was never officially catalogued. Without a clear owner stepping forward with a full manifest, we may never know for sure. This case highlights a tremendous and growing problem: our ability to track objects in the vastness of cislunar space. The region between Earth and the Moon is still incredibly limited. While we meticulously track debris in Earth orbit, once an object is flung toward the Moon, it often disappears into a tracking blind spot, becoming just another unknown in the darkness. The implications of this extend far beyond a simple academic puzzle. As we enter a new era of lunar exploration with the Artemis program and numerous international landers, the Moon is about to become a much busier place. Unidentified debris traveling at several thousand miles per hour poses a genuine risk to future spacecraft in lunar orbit and to astronauts on the surface. A tiny, untracked piece of metal could spell disaster for a multi-billion-dollar mission. The mystery rocket is a stark warning shot across our collective bow, a tangible demonstration that the rules of the road for this new frontier are still being written. It underscores the urgent need for an international system of traffic control for deep space, a shared effort to track every object we send into the void, because sometimes what goes up doesn't just come down, it comes down somewhere else, leaving a cryptic signature for us to decipher. But no object in our celestial catalog better embodies the idea of a haunted machine than the one drifting into our number 26 spot. The Viking landers, humanity's first successful missions to the surface of Mars. These weren't simple probes, they were robotic laboratories packed with sophisticated instruments designed to answer the most profound question we could ask of another world: is there life? And for a brief, breathtaking moment in the summer of 1976, it seemed they had found it. The data they sent back was so bizarre, so unexpectedly positive, that it sparked a controversy that has never fully been resolved, earning the twin landers a permanent reputation as the most haunted probes we've ever sent into the cosmos. The center of the mystery lies in one specific experiment, the labeled release or LR test. Its principle was elegantly simple. A robotic arm on the Viking lander would reach out, scoop up a sample of Martian soil, and deposit it into a small chamber on board. A nutrient soup rich in radioactive carbon-14 was then injected into the soil. The theory was straightforward. If there were any microorganisms present in the Martian dirt, they would presumably eat the nutrients, metabolize them, and then exhale or excrete some kind of gaseous waste product. Because that waste would contain the radioactive carbon, specially designed sensors could detect its presence. It was a test for the breath of life. To the astonishment of the scientists, the experiment worked. Almost immediately after the nutrient was added, the instruments registered a significant spike in radioactive gas. It was exactly the signature they were hoping to find. The celebration, however, was incredibly short-lived. The other biological experiments on board failed to confirm this thrilling result. Most damningly, the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer, an instrument designed to sniff out the complex organic molecules that are the very building blocks of life, found absolutely nothing. The soil was sterile, more barren than any desert on Earth. It was a devastating contradiction. How could there be life without any of the chemical evidence of life? The scientific consensus eventually settled on a chemical rather than a biological explanation. The leading theory suggests the Martian soil is rich in powerful oxidants like perchlorates, which would have reacted violently with the nutrient soup, breaking it down and releasing the radioactive carbon gas in a purely inorganic process. In this view, the LR experiment didn't detect life. It detected a hyper-reactive soil chemistry that mimics the respiratory byproducts of life with cruel perfection. The landers hadn't found biology, they had found a sterile world that behaves for all intents and purposes like a lifeless body with a faint chemical pulse. Yet for those who worked on the experiment, the ghost was never fully laid to rest. Gilbert Levin, the principal investigator for the labeled release experiment, maintained until his death that his instrument had indeed detected microbial life. He argued that the other experiments were not sensitive enough or were flawed in their design for the Martian environment. The initial positive result, followed by the confusing negative results from other instruments, created a permanent state of ambiguity. This unresolved tension is the source of the haunting. The Viking landers didn't deliver a clear yes or no. They delivered a profound and lasting maybe, a whisper of possibility that the scientific process has never been able to completely silence. This leads us directly into the psychological heart of the matter. Why do we project these ideas of ghosts and hauntings onto machines and data? The Viking results created a classic Rorschach test against the red dust of Mars. Faced with ambiguous information, human imagination rushes in to fill the void. We are a species hardwired for pattern recognition, for seeing faces in clouds and hearing words in static. This tendency, called pareidolia, is amplified a millionfold when the stakes are this high. The desire for a cosmic neighbor, for the answer to our profound solitude, is so powerful that we are primed to interpret any anomaly, any unexplained signal, as evidence that we are not alone. The vast, silent emptiness of space is the perfect canvas for this projection. It is a literal and figurative void, and into that void we pour our greatest hopes, our deepest fears, and our oldest stories. The Viking landers, now silent and frozen on the Martian surface for decades, have become modern monoliths. They are artifacts of our ambition that left us with a riddle instead of an answer. In their silence, we hear the questions we most want to ask. Every subsequent Mars mission that fails to find definitive proof of life only deepens the mystery, making the Vikings' ambiguous results seem even more significant. A fleeting glimpse of something we can't quite prove and can't quite forget. They are not haunted by Martian ghosts, they are haunted by our own yearning, a testament to the fact that the greatest mysteries in space are often the ones we bring with us. Yet for all the marvels we've encountered so far, nothing quite prepares us for a celestial object that seems to actively defy the very laws that govern our solar system. A cosmic rebel that gets thrown out only to swing back around again. Gliding into the number 27 spot is the celestial equivalent of a boomerang, a comet so stubbornly persistent in its path that it has earned a special place in the annals of orbital mechanics. This is the story of Comet 96P/Matchholes, an icy wanderer whose looping, unpredictable journey and bizarre chemical makeup have led some scientists to wonder if it's even from around here. Most comets follow elliptical orbits around the Sun, their journeys dictated by the steady, predictable pull of gravity. Comet Matchholes, however, plays by a different set of rules entirely. Its orbit is remarkably short, bringing it screaming past the Sun from just inside Mercury's orbit every 5.3 years. But the real magic happens on the other end of its journey, out near the orbit of Jupiter. Instead of making a clean loop, the comet has a dramatic gravitational encounter with the solar system's largest planet. Jupiter's immense gravity acts like a cosmic slingshot, giving the comet a powerful gravitational kick that drastically alters its path and sends it hurtling back inward toward the Sun. This constant gravitational tug of war between the Sun and Jupiter creates its unique boomerang-like trajectory, a looping path that makes it a regular, if unpredictable, visitor to our inner solar system. Yet its bizarre orbital ballet is only half the story. When astronomers point their spectrometers at comet matchholes, the data they get back is even more confounding. Comets are often called dirty snowballs because they are primarily composed of ice's water, carbon dioxide, methane mixed with dust and rock. When they approach the Sun, these ices heat up and sublime, transforming directly from a solid into a gas and creating the beautiful, glowing coma and tail we see from Earth. By analyzing the light from this coma, scientists can determine the comet's chemical composition. For 96P/matchholes, the results were startling. It is severely depleted in a chemical called cyanogen, a compound of carbon and nitrogen that is commonly found in the vast majority of comets. Furthermore, it's also missing most of its carbon-2, a 2-carbon molecule that is another common ingredient in these icy bodies. It's as if this comet is missing some of the fundamental ingredients that make a comet a comet. This profound chemical anomaly has sparked a fascinating debate about the comet's origins. The prevailing theory suggests that its unique composition could be a result of its extreme orbit. Because it swoops so close to the Sun on each pass, it is subjected to far more intense solar heating than most other comets. Over thousands of orbits, this relentless roasting could have essentially cooked off its more volatile chemicals like cyanogen, leaving behind a strangely depleted husk of a comet. It's a natural explanation that fits the data, painting a picture of a cosmic traveler slowly being bleached and altered by its own violent path. However, the more thrilling hypothesis is that comet matchholes might be an interstellar interloper, a visitor from another star system that was captured by the Sun's gravity long ago. Its strange chemistry could be a fingerprint of its original birthplace, a planetary system with a fundamentally different composition to our own. This idea gained significant traction with the discovery of our first confirmed interstellar objects, Oumuamua and Borisov, proving that such exchanges between star systems are not only possible but likely happening all the time. Perhaps 96P/matchholes is an ancient example of this very process, a fossilized record of a time before our solar system was fully formed, wandering in the void until Jupiter's gravity lassoed it into its peculiar looping dance. Whether a sun-bleached local or a captured alien, Comet Matchholes serves as a brilliant reminder that our solar system is not a static museum exhibit. It is a dynamic, evolving, and sometimes violent environment where gravity sculpts paths and radiation alters chemistry on a grand scale. This boomerang comet, with its missing ingredients and its dramatic gravitational assists, challenges our neatly defined categories and forces us to keep questioning the stories these frozen time capsules tell us. It is a testament to the fact that even the most familiar of phenomena, a comet's journey, can still hold profound and puzzling secrets, urging us to look closer and think deeper about the mechanics of our celestial neighborhood. But if the solar system holds comets that act like boomerangs, then the universe at large contains nebulae that behave like cosmic predators. Claiming the number 28 spot is a celestial beast of truly monstrous proportions, a star-forming region so vast and ferocious it has earned the ominous nickname of the space tarantula. Officially known as 30 Doradus or the Tarantula Nebula, this colossal cloud of gas and dust is not located within our own Milky Way, but in our galactic backyard, the Large Magellanic Cloud, some 160,000 light-years away. Despite that immense distance, it is so brilliant that if it were as close to us as the Orion Nebula, a mere 1,300 light-years away, it would cast visible shadows on the Earth at night, a stunning testament to its raw, terrifying power. This nebula gets its arachnid name from its appearance in telescopic images, where its long, twisting tendrils of dust and glowing gas sprawl outward like the bristling legs of a gigantic spider. But this is no delicate web. It is a chaotic stellar nursery, the most active and violent region of star birth known in our entire local group of galaxies. Spanning over 1,000 light-years across, its heart is a dazzling cluster of young, massive stars called R136, a cosmic powerhouse that is relentlessly tearing the nebula apart with the sheer force of its radiation and stellar winds. The stars here are not like our gentle sun. They are behemoths, some weighing in at over 200 times the mass of our own star, burning ferociously bright and dying young in spectacular supernova explosions. It is this cycle of violent birth and death that creates some of the tarantula's weirdest phenomena. The incredible energy blasting out from the central cluster can accelerate stars to incredible speeds, creating what astronomers call runaway stars. These are massive stars that have been flung out of their birthplace, hurtling through the nebula and intergalactic space at speeds of hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour, leaving brilliant wakes of shocked gas in their path. The nebula is also littered with the ghostly remnants of supernova, expanding bubbles of material from stars that have already reached the end of their short, brilliant lives. One such remnant, a structure known as N157, resembles a delicate, glowing butterfly nestled within the spider's grasp, a beautiful monument to a stellar cataclysm. Our view of this cosmic predator has been utterly transformed by the eyes of our greatest telescopes. The Hubble Space Telescope provided our first breathtaking, high-resolution portraits, revealing the intricate structure of its gaseous filaments and the dense pillars of dust where new stars are still being forged. But it is the James Webb Space Telescope that has truly peeled back the layers, using its infrared vision to see through the obscuring dust that shrouds the nebula's deepest secrets. Webb's images are nothing short of revolutionary, showing thousands of previously unseen infant stars still embedded in their dusty cocoons, and revealing the complex chemistry of the nebula's hydrocarbon-rich clouds in stunning, never-before-seen detail. These telescopes have turned the tarantula from a mysterious silhouette into a deeply studied laboratory, allowing us to witness the entire, brutal life cycle of stars, from their tumultuous birth in the gas clouds to their explosive deaths that will eventually seed future generations of stars and planets. It is a captivatingly bizarre sight, a region of both beautiful creation and terrifying destruction, proving that even in the depths of space, nature follows its most fundamental rule, that from chaos comes life. And now, we turn our attention from the vast, predatory beauty of the Tarantula Nebula to a much closer, much more personal cosmic game of hide and seek. At number 29 on our list of the weirdest things in space is a rock that briefly held the world's breath before performing a perfect vanishing act. This is the curious case of asteroid 2006 QV89, a spaceborne boulder that transformed from a potential threat into a celestial ghost, embodying the profound challenges of watching the skies above us. The story began in August 2006, when astronomers with the Catalina Sky Survey in Arizona first spotted a faint, fast-moving point of light arcing through the night sky. From just a handful of observations taken over a few days, they were able to calculate a preliminary orbit, and what they found was immediately concerning. Their projections showed a small but unsettling possibility, about a 1 in 7,000 chance, that this asteroid, estimated to be about 130 feet in diameter, could collide with Earth on September 9, 2019. Now, a 1 in 7,000 chance might sound incredibly low, but in the world of planetary defense, any probability above zero gets immediate and serious attention. For context, an asteroid of that size, while not a planet killer, could unleash energy comparable to a large nuclear weapon if it struck the atmosphere, capable of leveling a city and causing massive devastation. It was immediately added to the risk lists of both NASA and the European Space Agency, a formal designation that it was an object to watch very, very closely. But then, almost as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. After that initial brief observing window, asteroid 2006 QV89 moved into the daytime sky as seen from Earth, becoming completely lost in the blinding glare of the sun. With so few data points, its orbit was more of a guess than a certainty. Astronomers knew the general path it was on, but without follow-up observations, they couldn't pinpoint its location precisely. It entered a prolonged period of what astronomers call an observational gap, becoming just one of thousands of potentially hazardous near-Earth objects that we know of but cannot currently track. For 13 years, it was a ghost, a known unknown drifting somewhere out there in the void, with a future impact date circled on a calendar. This highlights the immense difficulty of planetary defense. It's not just about finding these objects, it's about keeping tabs on them. The sky is overwhelmingly vast, and these asteroids are incredibly faint. A tiny shift in the predicted path, calculated from an incomplete arc of observations, can translate to a massive uncertainty in its future position. Imagine trying to predict the exact path of a single car on a highway from a single blurry photograph taken from an airplane. You know the road it's on, but you have no idea its speed or if it's about to change lane. That was the predicament with QV89. We knew the highway it was traveling, its orbital path around the sun, but we had lost sight of the car itself. The solution to this celestial dilemma was as clever as it was counterintuitive. Since they couldn't find the asteroid itself in the immense haystack of space, astronomers decided to look for it by not looking for it. They used the world's most powerful telescopes, like the Very Large Telescope in Chile, to stare intently at the specific tiny patch of sky where the asteroid would have to be if it were on a collision course with Earth in 2019. They weren't searching for a moving dot, they were staring at a fixed point, looking for the absence of a rock. The logic was brilliant. If it was going to hit us, its path was predetermined, and it would necessarily be in that specific location in the sky at that specific time on its approach. After a thorough search of that critical area, they found nothing. The patch of sky was empty. This meant the asteroid was definitely not on a collision course for that September. The risk was officially reduced to zero. The impact was not going to happen. The final twist in this tale came just a few months later, in the summer of 2019. The asteroid, as if tired of its own mystery, decided to reappear. The Catalina Sky Survey, the very same program that had discovered it 13 years prior, spotted it again. This time, with a much longer arc of observations, its orbit could be calculated with extreme precision, finally confirming that it poses no threat to Earth for at least the next century. It was a welcome relief, but also a stark reminder of our vulnerability. The story of 2006 QV89 is a masterclass in how planetary defense actually works. It's a meticulous process of discovery, loss, calculated prediction, and ultimately reassurance. It's a weird dance between human ingenuity and the cold, impersonal mechanics of orbital physics, a game of hide and seek where the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. And finally, we reach the 30th and final entry on our list, a celestial object that appears to hold a cosmic paradox within its glowing heart. This is the Eternal Flame Nebula, officially known as NGC 2024, a vast cloud of gas and dust located in the familiar constellation of Orion. From a distance, this region presents one of the most eerily beautiful and deceptively familiar sights in the entire night sky. Through the lenses of powerful telescopes, it looks for all the world like a solitary, colossal bonfire raging in the void, its tendrils of glowing gas mimicking flickering flames captured in a single, breathtaking moment. But this is no destructive blaze, it is a creative inferno, a stellar nursery where the very forces that appear to consume are actually in the process of building something new. The name Eternal Flame is more than just a poetic comparison. It describes the very real astrophysical processes at work. The delicate, flame-like structures we see are actually immense pillars and clouds of molecular hydrogen gas, the primary fuel for star formation. These clouds are being illuminated from within by the intense ultraviolet radiation pouring off a cluster of incredibly young, hot, and massive stars that have recently ignited at the nebula's core. This stellar radiation is so powerful that it ionizes the surrounding hydrogen, stripping electrons from their atoms and causing the vast cloud to glow with a characteristic reddish-pink hue, the same process that lights up other famous nebulae. The darker, intricate patterns of dust weaving through the glow act like cosmic smoke, completing the illusion of a ghostly fire frozen in time. Yet the true magic of the Eternal Flame Nebula lies hidden behind its most obvious visual deception. At the very heart of the nebula, obscured by the very dust that makes it so beautiful, lies the real engine of this cosmic furnace, the cluster of newborn stars. These are not gentle suns like our own. They are stellar behemoths, many times more massive and burning ferociously hot and bright. Their fierce stellar winds are actively sculpting the nebula, blowing the gas and dust into those familiar, complex shapes and pillars. Within those dark, dusty pillars, the next generation of stars is already beginning to coalesce under the relentless force of gravity, their formation triggered by the very radiation and winds from their older siblings that are simultaneously eroding the surrounding cloud. This creates a beautiful and violent cycle of birth and destruction that is anything but eternal. The nebula is a temporary structure, a fleeting cradle. Over millions of years, the intense radiation from the central stars will eventually blow away the remaining gas and dust, shutting off the material for new star formation and bringing the nebula's fiery glow to an end. What will be left behind is a brilliant new open star cluster, a glittering swarm of stars that will gradually drift apart over eons. The eternal flame is thus a profound cosmic irony, a fire that appears permanent but is actually a brilliant, ephemeral flash in the pan of galactic time, a short-lived beacon marking the violent and beautiful act of creation. It stands as a final, stunning reminder that the weirdest things in space are often those that challenge our earthly perceptions, presenting a familiar scene forged by forces utterly alien to our world. And so we reach the end of our tour through the cosmos of the bizarre, from a lost bag of tools to a nebula that mimics a flickering fire. It's a collection that proves the universe is far from a silent, empty void. It is a vibrant, dynamic, and utterly weird museum of wonders. We've encountered human ambition cast in gold records and cherry-red sports cars, nature's mysteries in vanishing exoplanets and nitrogen icebergs, and the sheer poetry of a camera lens cap granted eternal life around the sun. Each object, whether a testament to our own ingenuity or a puzzle from the depths of the cosmos, tells a story that expands our understanding of what's possible. What ties these 30 entries together is more than just their oddity. It's their power to inspire a profound sense of wonder. They remind us that exploration is not a sterile, calculated affair, but a deeply human endeavor filled with curiosity, humor, and even mistakes that become legends. They show us that the universe is under no obligation to conform to our expectations, constantly presenting us with phenomena that challenge our textbooks and force us to rethink the laws of physics. The greatest discovery in all of this might be that the cosmos is not just stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine, always holding a few more secrets in reserve just out of view. This endless capacity for surprise is what keeps the astronomical community and all of us who are fascinated by the stars looking up. Every strange signal, every anomalous orbit, and every piece of glittering debris is an invitation to ask bigger questions and to dream bigger dreams. It's a conversation between humanity and the universe, one that started when we first looked at the night sky in awe, and that continues with every new mission we launch and every new telescope we point at the heavens. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 30 weird wonders captured your imagination the most? Was it the haunting story of the wow signal, the audacity of Starman piloting his Tesla, or the terrifying beauty of the Tarantula Nebula? Share your favorite in the comments below and tell us why it stuck with you. The conversation about our weird and wonderful universe is just beginning, and your curiosity is the most important part of it. If you enjoyed this journey to the farthest reaches of the strange and unexplained, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next cosmic adventure. Until then, keep looking